So let's get to a really happy news story. Rosie O'Donnell is in trouble with the law. If justice is blind, Rosie O'Donnell may now be headed to the clink. We are joined for comment by President Donald Trump. Mr. President, your reaction.
I like to see bad people fail. Rosie failed. I'm happy about it. She's basically a disaster. Well, she called me a snake oil salesman. And, coming from Rosie, that's pretty low, because when you look at her and when you see the mind is weak. I don't see it. I don't get it. I never understood. How does she even get on television? I believe Barbara made a terrible mistake putting her on, and I think Barbara's probably paying a big price.
When you see the mind, you're totally right, Mr. President. The mind is weak. The mind is weak. So Rosie apparently made illegal campaign donations on 5 separate occasions. And when you donate to a political candidate, there is a limit for campaign donations. In this case, I believe the limit's $2,700, and Rosie exceeded it, apparently vastly exceeded it. So you might recall, you're having deja vu all over again, Dinesh D'Souza, the conservative filmmaker and columnist, he did this too. He did this exact same thing for his friend Wendy Long. And I was working races in New York when Wendy Long was running in this race. Wendy Long was his old pal from Dartmouth. She was never going to win this Senate seat in New York. And he donated $20,000 to her instead of the legal limit. So he donated over the limit. One, certainly not enough money to make any difference in politics. And two, a race that was unwinnable. It just wasn't going to happen. For this great crime, Dinesh, for giving a little extra money to his old college pal in a race that was never going to win, he was sentenced to 5 years probation, 8 months in a halfway house, and a $30,000 fine. The reason that Dinesh got this, usually these cases aren't prosecuted. The reason that he was prosecuted and sent to the clink is because he was a major critic of Barack Obama. He made these films against Barack Obama. He was a relentless critic of Obama. So he was selectively prosecuted and sentenced to absurd time for this minor first-time offense. Rosie O'Donnell has donated way more money than that to many more candidates, apparently $90,000 in just this cycle alone. And then when she was called out on it, she claimed ignorance. She said, well, I didn't know there was a limit. I didn't know what the limit was. The mind, it's just not there. As Donald Trump says, the mind is not. So she said, I didn't know. How was I supposed to know? I mean, I know it's the law and it's written on every campaign website and it's actually by law clearly spelled out. But if it was too much, the candidates should have returned the money. But as you might know, ignorance of the law is no excuse. That's not an excuse not to be prosecuted. So will she be prosecuted? I don't know. Usually the first-time offenders don't get prosecuted. Rosie is clearly a multiple-time offender here. Is justice blind?